Welcome and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is 10 o'clock and time for us to spit some Medicare marketing facts at you. And if you haven't been here in a while, or maybe you're new here, you may be wondering why we have to spit facts at you and why can't we just talk about them like normal people? And you also might be wondering who we are. Those are great questions, but we only have time for one of them. My name is Randy Lober, Growth Marketing Manager here at Action Benefits, and part of my job is helping you all understand the market in which we're working in, so you can better grow your book, better take advantage of some new marketing rules that we'll all like, as the slide alludes to here, and help you make the most of it coming up in this fall's AEP. Joining me today is Chelsea Gomez. Chelsea, say hi to the people, please.
Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea Gomez. I'm here to offer your color commentary as Randy does the heavy lifting today. I'm excited to join you guys today for this one in particular because, as you might have known if you attended our wonderful summit, I know it's um, I personally am very biased to say, of course, but if you attended the summit, you know that one of the things that I did for you guys was kind of plan out some marketing events that you guys could have won at the summit. So I think I have a little bit of an interesting perspective here as someone who went through the rigmarole recently of scheduling some of the marketing events. I don't want to get too far ahead and spoil some of Randy's super cool things he's going to tell you, but I can speak to some of the ways that the rules changing have affected how you're going to go about scheduling these events and how valuable they are to you. So I can't wait to just interrupt Randy whenever I feel like it to say some things about these Medicare rule changes. So if you have any questions, throw them into the chat.
Yep, chat, Q&A, whatever makes you feel happy. Here, we pay attention to all of it, and we will stop at a convenient point within the session. We're not going to make you wait 45 minutes to get your question answered. That's not how we do business here, because you're not going to remember your question in 45 minutes after you ask it. All right. So first things first, we'll talk about some Medicare marketing rules today. You might have heard these in a few places. We've written about them, dropped them in your email box. You might have heard about them in our final rule webinar we did this spring when these marketing changes became official. But now, as we're in that home stretch, all of our certifications are out or will be out soon. You're thinking really seriously about what life looks like for you between October 1st and December 15th, October 1st being when your pre-AEP begins, right? We wanted to put this all in a little bow for you so you can have an idea of what you can expect and you can take advantage of coming up. We think you would agree that as seasoned agents, for the most part, as we look around here, although there are a few folks newer to the industry here as well, but we think you would agree that over time, right, history doesn't rhyme, or history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes rather. And depending on the political party in power, we see pendulums or your perpetual motion device here kind of swing two ways. Sometimes it's more toward consumer protection through friction, things like a 48-hour rule, things like having 12 hours of distance between your marketing or Medicare 101 and your marketing events, things that really kind of slow the whole process down. And then the other side of the screen, consumer access through efficiency, right? Sometimes people take those barriers away. Sometimes they want, consumers talking to you quickly in a fast fashion, being able to support the decisions that they need to make rather quickly, right? Not saying, no, Miss Smith, you need to wait 48 hours before we can talk here coming up. And I hope we will prove today that the pendulum has swung from that consumer protection through friction side over to that consumer access through efficiency through some of the 6 changes that we'll talk about here today. But to help illustrate the point, a question for you all. I'd like you to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen if any of these things come to you, are true for you. So what does some of that friction cost you? Have you lost any prospects to the 48-hour rule? When you said, no, Miss Smith, we can't take your call today, or I can't talk about product today, but if you make an appointment in 48 hours from now, sure, we can talk then. Have you ever given a great Medicare 101? You've had the audience eating out of the palm of your hand. People come up to you and say, I want to sign up right now. What can I do? And you say, nope, I can't collect a scope of appointment, can't collect appointments here or anything else. And kind of lost the steam, lost the momentum come out of that event. Keep raising those hands if that's true for you. Or as part of your TPMO disclaimer, when you say we don't represent every plan in your area, the information we provide is limited to X carriers, Y plans, and talk to ship for assistance. Have your consumers ever gotten bad advice from SHIP or been directed or misguided to a different plan than you might have chosen with and for them later on? And we see, especially when we talk about the 48 hour rule, but certainly throughout, many of your hands went up for all of those, right? There's been a lot of friction, a lot of barriers to that enrollment and conversation. And we wanted to say, yes, those are all things that maybe have cost you some business, cost you the ability to help someone. But those things are changing coming up for contract year 2027. And we should very carefully, loudly, and plainly note that all the changes we talk about here go into effect beginning with pre-AEP on October 1st, 2026. So when we tell you about these rules changing in a minute, doesn't mean you can do these things right away. Means everything changes on October 1st. We're just giving you time to prep, time to plan, time to think about it, and I see how you'll take advantage of it when October 1st rolls around. So just to give you a little bit of a layout of how we'll structure the conversation today, we're going to tell you about the history of the regulation because you're probably, if you're nerds like us, you want to know where things have gone from. In the middle column of the next few slides, we'll tell you about what's going to be true for you in contract year 2027, beginning on October 1st. And then we'll tell you a bit about what's not now possible, give you some examples of what you can now do because of that rule change. So in first thing we want to point out to you is the 12-hour buffer between events is eliminated. So starting in January of 2021, the rule said that the switch from education to a marketing event had to be clear, meaning that you had to clearly state to beneficiaries that the educational portion of this session is over. We're no longer talking about just the A, B, C's, and D's of Medicare. Now I'm going to get into some actual product information with you and maybe even help you make an enrollment decision. In April 2023, that rule changes a bit. And Marty, I see your comment, but I need more help understanding what it means if you have a moment to type there. Because if there's an issue with the presentation, I can help out with that. But in April 2023, the rule changes a little bit. And what happens is that edition of CMS, that administration, says, no, there's got to be a 12-hour wait now, 12-hour wait between your Medicare 101 and your marketing event afterward. So in effect, you could have a Medicare 101 at 7 a.m. at the local library, but you'd have to wait till 7 p.m. that same day to invite those folks in for a Medicare marketing session where you talk product. For contract year 2027, that changes a bit. That 12-hour buffer is eliminated, meaning you can schedule your Medicare 101s and your marketing events back to back now, but that transition must be clear and beneficiaries do have to be given an opportunity to leave. So you have to say that, this concludes the educational portion of the conversation, that if you'd like to leave, now is your opportunity to do so, and then you can go into that marketing presentation. Often this can take the form of a meal break or a snack break or a refreshment break or a restroom break, something in between there. So to put it in really plain language, what's now possible is you can have that Medicare 101 at 10 to 10:50, have a 10-minute break, and then start your marketing event at 11, run through things pretty quickly in a fairly organized fashion. Now, today is not just the Randy and Chelsea show, it is also the you show, your chance to put these rules into effect. So let's step into these shoes here for a moment. Suppose it is 10:51 on October 2nd, 9 minutes until your marketing event. You've just given the best Medicare 101 of your life. What happens in this gap? What should you be doing between 10:51 and 11 o'clock? What should sound like, feel like? What should you say? What should your beneficiaries hear? Put a few thoughts in the chat for us, and we'll see if we can't help you out.
I will say too, now that I am someone who kind of has done a couple of these and planned out a few of them at different types of locations. One, I guess, pro tip I would give is like try to be aware of where you're scheduling these events at and kind of tailor your expectations around where you're going, right? So if you're going to a senior center, um, and you are going to have that 9 minute gap, you might see a different level of engagement with an audience than the 9 minute gap that you're seeing between your two events at the library in comparison to at a coffee shop. Wherever you're choosing to host these events might change what kind of conversations you're having between these two types of events. Because I know at least if you're going to a senior center and you're bringing a craft with you to like kind of get seniors to show up and be there and engage, um, while you don't want to not talk to them about their craft and be like, oh wow, yeah, great, you made the bead gecko if you remember the 90s. But you also want to make sure you're steering those conversations appropriately without being too, I guess, like aggressively salesy, which Randy will get into later.
We will. But the key thing here, right, and some of you, and remember, you have the option to chat either publicly or privately using that blue drop down in the chat window. What some of you said privately is that you've got to make sure that transition is clear, right? I spent a few minutes harping on that, but want to make sure it's true and it's out there for you. You've got to make that. So whether it's an announcement on the screen of the education is over, the marketing begins at XYZ time, whether it's you definitely physically saying that or verbally saying that out loud. Beneficiaries got to know the transition is happening and they have to have an opportunity to leave. You can't just end at 10:59 and start the marketing event at 11 o'clock. There has to be a defined opportunity for them to be able to leave if they don't want to hear about the marketing portion of that event. Second change to be aware of is that scope of appointments or SOAs can be collected at Medicare 101s, our Medicare educational events. And again, this goes into effect on October 1st of this year. So the January 2021 final rule did allow for the collection of SOAs at educational events. If you've been around in the industry for a while, you know that. But you also know that in April 2023, CMS reversed course, as they sometimes do, and said, nope, that's no longer allowed. It puts too much pressure on the beneficiary to set that enrollment. They need a bit of a cooling off period before they talk to the agents. In contract year 2027, you can now, once again, collect your SOAs at a Medicare educational event. That's good news for you because what it means is now you can schedule a one-on-one appointment or even an enrollment before a prospect leaves the room. You can have your Medicare 101 session. Someone comes up and says to you, hey, I like what you had to say. Can we talk more about this later? And you don't have to say, no, I can't schedule an appointment now, but please call my office. You can collect the scope of appointment. You can, figure out what they want to talk about. And with the rule coming up next, you're probably going to like here, the pace of that conversation can change
Oh,
because
Randy,
that 40, what?
can you go back? Sorry. I had an idea or something. So don't, yes, you can schedule these. You can have this SOAs be collected at these Medicare 101s. I wouldn't throw away your consent to contact cards though. Um, yes, I would bring my tablet. I would, so I have them signed there if that's what the client is interested in doing. But for two reasons, I wouldn't just throw them completely away. One, if you're going to have, there are still going to be some clients who probably are going to want to go home and mull it over, right? And that's okay. You want to be able to meet them where they're at. So yes, go ahead and give them that consent to contact card at that point. I would not, and again, Randy's going to talk about this later. I would not push too hard and force them to sign an SOA. That's how we're going to get the rule change back to the way it was. And the other thought I have there is if you're in the midst of signing a scope with one client and another one's really anxious to get speaking with you, but they can't because their ride is there or whatever, having a consent to contact card they can just sign really quick and have you contact them later is also a great option. So yes, scope of appointments, get them and sign them. Great. I would not throw away your consent to contact cards and go, I don't need these anymore.
Because you would still need to prove your consent to contact anyway.
Right.
Um, 48-hour rule, though, is also eliminated. The 48-hour rule, for those of you who may be newer to the field, says that there has to be a 48-hour waiting period between when you collect the signed scope of appointment and when you can actually have that appointment. That rule, again, is in place to protect beneficiaries from, or was it, at least in CMS's words, to protect beneficiaries from high pressure sales, from having to make an enrollment a decision on the spot, or at least hear about products on the spot. And you see the history here, right? It first appeared in September 2011, was removed in January 2021, and the rule, the 48-hour rule was again reinstated in April of 2023. And again, the pendulum swings back and forth based on what CMS is hearing from beneficiaries. And in the latest round of comments, what they say is the 48-hour rule has actually done more harm than good, because there are folks who maybe come to events and or come out to your office, and maybe that's the only time they can get there because of their ride or because of public transport or so on and so forth. And the 48-hour rule puts a little bit too much of a barrier in between that beneficiary who needs help and the support you can provide to them. So in contract year 2027, and again beginning on October 1st and not before that, the 48-hour rule is removed, meaning you can collect that enrollment or collect the SOA and then start the enrollment or start the consultation right away, right after you've collected that signed and valid SOA. And the how you collect the SOA doesn't matter here. As Chelsea pointed out, you can do it tablet if you're on a phone, for whatever, for doing your consultations that way. A voice signature is just fine. If you're still collecting paper SOAs, that's all okay too. However you get the SOA done now, though, you can have the consultation and the enrollment happen in quick succession. That 48-hour rule is eliminated. So as Chelsea pointed out, there may be situations where you have the Medicare 101 of your life, an educational event, and you have some folks milling around at the front of the room. Two of them say, hey, you know what? I want to enroll now. We know that's going to be possible, right? Because you can collect the SOA in there and there's no more 48-hour rule, but there's some compliance risks to be aware of. Love to hear from the audience. What's in your brains? What are you thinking about? What could go wrong here? And Chelsea, I'd love some of your thoughts here too.
So as I was cold calling all of these places to get events, I'm really glad that I got to have this experience actually. Um, Not only did libraries seem to be surprisingly enough the place that was most open to having me most of the time. I will say there were some libraries that clearly had been burned by an agent who did something that they weren't supposed to have done. And they couldn't completely explain what or why, but they knew they just didn't want an agent in their building. And to clear that up for yourself, because I will say too, the libraries that I spoke to seemed to want to set up like a recurring relationship. Like they wanted me to show up again sometime in February or sometime in whenever to have these again. And that's what you want, right? You want to have a place where you can continuously pull clients from or prospects from and have these events at. If you're going to do that, make sure that you are pretty clear and upfront about what you're going to be doing when you're there. So just because the event rule changed, that's awesome. That doesn't mean the venue's rule changed, right? I had most libraries when I spoke to them, if they had had an agent there at any point, had said something to me about, well, what are you selling here? Why are you going to sell things at the library? We're not about that here. And that's absolutely fine. They get to say that as the venue, right? And if you want to be respectful of what the venue is rules are, you want to not actually do the sale itself at the library, right? You would bring them back to your office or you would fill out the scope at least and then have them come later. Or opposite, consider that that might be something that the library might set as a hard, fast rule. Have your have these educational events at a more commercial location where that's not going to be a thing they care about, whether that be at like a professional environment. Like there was one place I was talking to that ended up not working out, but it was like a just a community space that you could just have for an hour. You could do it there. You could do it at a coffee shop, library, not library, what is that called? Bookstore, wherever they are going to be more receptive to those things because you're paying to be there, right? In comparison to a library where if um, or they might be more worried about you doing something that is going to poorly reflect on them, which your agents here with us, you're not going to do that. But somebody did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had that rule in the first place.
So there's that very real relationship risk, right? That you might have with the venue, and you always want to be respectful of that. If you want to keep going to that venue, there's also some real like health insurance compliance risks here as well. So some of you point out you have to have that valid SOA, right? And make sure that it covers that you only stick to the products that the person wants to talk to. You can certainly say yes here, right? If they want to enroll right now, that'd be just fine. But the valid signed SOA has got to be the first thing that we need to pay attention to there, right? Second thing we need to think about is HIPAA concerns. So just because you can take that enrollment there doesn't mean you should. And what I would recommend to folks who want to be able to take enrollments on the spot is to see if you have like a bigger meeting room reserved for the meeting itself. Maybe see if you can also reserve a smaller study room or a smaller spot so you can have private conversations with those folks. So they're not giving health or information out loud or doctor information out loud. You can get through everything you need to get through there. The other thing to be aware of is the appearance of a rushed enrollment, right? If the scope is dated and timestamped at 11:03 and the enrollment happens at, dated timestamped at 11:23, 20 minutes probably wasn't enough time for you to do your due diligence there as an agent or broker, right? With all the disclaimers and all the, expiration and so on you have to do to make this work for you. And while I guess it's certainly possible that might give CMS another reason to take a look at that particular pairing of scope and enrollment and go, hey, what happened here? So that's one thing to be cautious of here too, right? Just because the rules say you can doesn't always mean you should. You still want to certainly always protect that beneficiary, make sure you're not coming off as a pushy salesperson here as well.
As I do them, I've also learned just because you know the rules doesn't mean that the prospects do, right? So in my experience, I've also done Rotary clubs where I've shown up and done like more casual type Medicare 101 events there. Um, they don't understand that you're not supposed to like just answer questions like, well, my neighbor has a free thing. Like, can I have the free thing? Well, no, but probably not. If you can, that's not something you can discuss with them right in that moment. And they're going to want that answer from you, and they're going to just talk about those things. And I understand from firsthand experience, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to navigate that conversation because you want to answer their question, but you also don't want to fall into the like steeply quickly fall into that territory of discussing things you're not supposed to be discussing without having that scope. So that was another thing when I saw that question posed, like that I would be cautious of is just making sure that if you like just dancing that line appropriately, especially in a place with a library. The libraries will most likely, in my experience, have a librarian come watch you to make sure you're not doing anything that they disagree with. And they don't know the rules, but if CMS happens to ask, the librarian's going to tell them what you did.
Absolutely. And speaking of staying on the up and up, another piece of good news is the TPMO disclaimer, your third party marketing organization disclaimer, the one that says we don't offer every plan in your area, but every information we provide is limited to plans we do offer in your area. That disclaimer is changing a little bit, and when you have to read that disclaimer is changing a bit as well. So that this disclaimer first appears in the May 2022 final rule and was revised in April 2023. So where you had to do the math and figure out how many plans and how many carriers you represented in each county for the beneficiaries that you're living in there. And current state, that disclaimer must be read within the first 60 seconds of the call. So your conversations, at least if you're having a phone call or a Zoom call, go like this. Hi, Miss Jones. I don't represent every plan in your area. Anything I tell you about is limited to what I do represent in your area. And gosh, that's just not a very natural way to start any conversation, and not a way that really builds trust and rapport, right? CMS heard your complaints loudly and is adjusting two things about the disclaimer. First thing is the timing. Not from beginning on October 1st going forward, the disclaimer must only be read before the discussion of a specific plan's benefits. So, meaning it doesn't have to appear in the first minute any longer. You can actually say, "Hey, Miss Jones, how you doing? How's your husband? How's your kids? Oh, those grandkids are really cute. I bet. What grade are they going into?" You can have all that conversation. You can even do a little bit of discovery, right? Like, tell me about your needs, tell me about your doctors, so on and so forth. But the moment you go to present a plan or a set of plans, that's when you need to to go into disclaimer mode and read that. Then once you've read that, that is your gateway to discussing actual plan details within that appointment or that phone call. The other thing is the ship statement is going to be removed from the language. So no longer do you have to say, you can always contact ship for information on all your options. Because what CMS found in their study is that the quality of the advice that ship counselors provide varies widely between states and varies widely even among the very various ship counselors within a state. And in almost, or in many cases, because ship counselors aren't licensed, they don't take the same certifications you do, uh, or that you hopefully will here soon. Um, the advice they give just isn't always in the best interest of that beneficiary. So, in order to limit some confusion, that portion of the disclaimer is being removed, again, effective on October 1st of this year. So, you can now, again, have conversations and you don't have to direct your clients and prospects to those ship counselors, which is all good news. While you're talking about plans, the other big change here is that defensible superlatives are now allowed. And when we talk about superlatives, we're talking about words like good, better, best, great, greatest, most greatest, those kinds of things going forward. In January 2021, the final rule there formally barred misleading statements. You can't make any misleading statements about the quality or about what a Medicare Advantage plan or a Part D plan covers or doesn't cover. And the April 2023 rule prohibited unsupported superlatives. So in April 2023, unless you had like the actual study, and until now, unless you had the actual study that said, here, right here is where it says this plan has the greatest number of primary care physicians in our state, you couldn't say that in an appointment, right? Now, of course, you can those superlatives will be allowed so long as they're defensible and not misleading. Meaning, so I can have statements like this plan does have the largest number of PCPs in your area or within the state of Michigan, as long as I'm able to defend that, right? As long as I can go back and pull up the newspaper article or the carrier marketing material that says that, those things would be greenlit in an appointment going forward, as long as I can go back and cite my fact later. Also, still can't use the word free anywhere within a Medicare appointment. That's not a superlative, that's an adjective for those of you in the grammar nerds. So you can't say, still can't say things like this is a free Medicare Advantage plan or this is a free prescription drug plan. That you can still say this is no cost or zero premium plan going forward here as well. So the PCP network is what I was harping on, and as long as again, as long as it's true, that is in fact a thing you can say.
Do you think saying that you work with the best FMO ever is a superlative, or is that based on
It is a
fact since we
superlative, but
are the
we
best
need
one?
we need more Google reviews to prove it, I think. Ah,
Ah,
okay. Put your compliance hats on for a moment. This is some of the work that Chelsea and I help you all do when you're getting ready to market your agencies. Some of the work we can do. And it's some of the work that we work with our carrier partners and CMS on as well when you're getting ready to market as well. So suppose, for example, that you are getting ready to get a mailing campaign out and you want to put a postcard out there, right? You want to get people interested in some of the products you offer. As I look at this postcard on the right, what are some things I would either approve, revise, or reject about this postcard? In case you can't read anything, I'll work it through here. So in this big section, get the best Medicare Advantage plan in ABC County with the asterisk down here according to the most recent CMS star ratings. And then I got a free physical each year, and I've got accepted by 97% of New Jersey primary care doctors because I didn't want to pick on Michigan here. What would we approve here? What would we revise? What is outright wrong? Love to see any thoughts you all have in the chat. And Chelsea, take a crack at it too. What belongs? What what needs to be adjusted, what should be kicked to the curb here.
First of all, that color scheme. Uh, no, it's like it's giving Rugrats. No, I'm joking. I don't want to steal anybody's answer, so I'm trying to like vamp a little bit before people answer. I don't want to like take away, but like if it were me, um, the you can't use the word free. Jot that down. So I would call it a no cost annual physical or something like that. Is what I can come up with off the top of my head. I didn't look at I did look at the slides. I always do, but like I purposefully didn't memorize this so that I would have to actually answer on the spot in front of people because that's like way more fun than
It
just
is
me
way more
knowing what.
fun and also way more correct. Well, not that you would have gotten incorrect, but you're absolutely right. Free, the
Heck
word free
yeah.
can't be there, right? No cost. I've revised this big yellow section here, right? Get the best Medicare Advantage plan in ABC County. I've even asterisked it there though, but best is still kind of subjective, right? So I'd have to say something like get the top rated Medicare Advantage plan in ABC County and be okay there as well. Accepted by 97% of primary care doctors in the state. That's cool. That's something legit. That's something you can say. I just need to be able to cite it later. So nothing here stands as is, and nothing here gets flat out rejected. I'd have to revise all three of these claims, right, if I was going to put this in front of beneficiaries and use it as a marketing piece on behalf of a plan. And by the way, again, if you are planning on marketing a specific plan, it's hard to there's a lot of hoops to jump through, right? When you if you're putting together a marketing piece like this, it has to get approved by the carrier, it has to get approved by CMS if you put together something like this. We can help you through that process, but we can also help you find things that are or think about other ways to put your agency out there that have less compliance loopholes, but still help you build an effective or less compliance hurdles, not loopholes, less compliance hurdles to hoop, but still help put you out in front of people. We should also point out that the call recording retention requirement has slimmed, and this is good news for you if you are in the business of recording your own calls, because you know that costs a lot of data, costs a lot of space, costs a lot of hard drive space, wherever it is you might be using it. That call recording requirement first was appeared in the May 2022 rule along with the TPMO disclaimer. And we all commonly understood that to mean that you need to record every call you have with Medicare beneficiary. In 2024, CMS says, no, that's not really what we're trying to do here. I want to modify that to only include things that are part of the enrollment chain. So sales calls, your marketing calls, and your enrollment calls all need to be recorded. That's what we're really concerned about here. If you know it's a service call, or someone wants to know where their bill is, or their OTC card is, that doesn't need to be recorded. And that's the current state of things here at the moment. Oh, and by the way, you had to, just like your scopes of employment and enrollments, you had to hang on to these things for 10 years as well. For contract year 2027, that requirement gets slimmed down a little bit. You now only have to hold on to calls for 6 years total. Years 1, 2, and 3 must have the full audio portion of that call. So if you have a video call, all you need to save is just the audio portion of that. So Zoom breaks those out for you, for example. Or if it's a phone call, you need to save the audio version of that, of course, for years 1, 2, and 3. Years 4, 5, and 6 may be complete transcriptions. So if you are able to have someone transcribe or pay for a transcription service, or CMS is still unclear about whether they'll allow AI transcriptions there. But it is a possibility that in years 4, 5, and 6 from here on out, again, you'll be able to slim down your data storage space. That is different though from an enrollment record. So your enrollment records, including telephonic enrollments, so whether it's a paper enrollment app that you take or telephonic enrollment, or you're doing enrollment via Zoom, all of that portion of that call still needs to be held on to for 10 years. So a difference between like the sales call, the consultation where you're talking product, that's the 6 years part. But when you're actually doing the enrollment, that's the 10-year part. So what's now possible is we all effectively saved 4 years worth of data storage here, right? A compounding 4 years. We all have time and attention we can spend on other things to help us improve our businesses. And so we hope that over the last 35 minutes or so, you've seen that pendulum swing a little bit from protection through friction over to access through efficiency. But what are some real tangible takeaways for you all? We've got some for you. First thing is just to put this, as clear as you possibly can. For those of you who are hosting educational events and even piggybacking them with marketing events, because that's something you'll be able to do now, is that your event workflow shifts. Of course, you'll always want to file and report your events. And again, talk with your account manager here at Action Benefits. We can help you file and report those. And if you don't know who your account manager is, well, let Chelsea or I know. We can help put you in touch. Then you can do your Medicare 101, right? You can build your authority, build your trust, have that conversation, show everyone you know part A, B, C, and D and what's going on there. And then you're able to pause and invite scopes of employment from those who are interested. Then you can start off in your marketing event with your into plan specific education. Again, collect scopes. And if anyone's interested in enrollments after either or both of those events, you can do that on site, so long as you're doing that in a private and HIPAA compliant area. The other big thing that shifts here, and this is our 10-step Medicare appointment guide. We're again happy to give you copies of this here as well. The current version, right, that is where we have to read that recording, read that disclaimer right at the beginning of the phone call or the virtual call here, and right at the top. Where that changes to is you still have to start that recording, right, for that sales or enrollment call in step 2, right after we prepare, after we start the conversation. But I don't have to read the disclaimer then until the presentation occurs, right? So there's a lot of stuff I can do. I can confirm that they're in fact eligible for Medicare. I can do a bit of discovery. I can summarize what I've heard from them and make sure that I know I have a sense of what their needs are. And then before I get into plan details, then I can read the disclaimer and do my work there. But we've used this pendulum graphic throughout the presentation, right, of access through and friction. And we do want to remind you that the pendulum can, in fact, swing both ways. Some areas we see that it's easy for people to get burned is that blurring of the lines between education and marketing events, right? If you stop the education, move right to the marketing event, and start talking product right away, that's probably the easiest spot you can get burned if you don't have that well-defined break in between the two. Also, secret shoppers are going to be back or are back rather from carriers and CMS. So if they detect any bit of soft pressure on your scope of appointment, say, fill this out, we'll talk. You just slide it across the table, right? That's a spot we can see folks getting burned here. And same as we talked about a few moments ago, where if you can certainly take your enrollments on the same day, but if there's the appearance or the timing of them being rushed, CMS might raise an eyebrow or two on that, and that might change some rulemaking here. And again, undocumented superlatives, if you go out there saying everything is the best thing since sliced bread, right, and the beneficiary makes a complaint about that or about you, that again could see the rule change. What triggers enforcement, but also rule changes here is in the middle column. We've talked about complaints a little bit. If a beneficiary doesn't like the way something went down, their first call is not going to be to you. It's going to be to Medicare, right? Because that's how they report their compliance concerns there. Secret shoppers, as we said, are back in force. You're going to see them from both carriers and CMS, which means you got to get it right every time here. Call recording audits can certainly be a thing. CMS, in fact, in changing some of the call recording rules, did mention and say several examples of some things they look for during those call recording audits. So be mindful that all those records are open to audit by other people. That's why those recordings exist. And certainly carriers are responsible for monitoring your behavior because you're their downline entities, and we have a role to play in that too. So be careful of carrier monitoring and reporting here as well. So if I had to put that all in the bow, speed certainly is returned to the game, but pressure is still prohibited. You don't have permission to lean to the stereotype that many people have of us as insurance agents, right? So a lot of people put us somewhere between lawyers and used car salesmen, and our trustworthiness don't feed into that image by being a high pressure person that's shoving SOAs and apps across the table, right? We want to make sure we're still being the good people you are and taking care of the needs of the person across from you. going forward. So what do you do next? Revise your TPMO disclaimers. And once some final files come out from CMS, we'll get to you our AEP toolkit where you'll be able to do your disclaimers and know exactly how many plans and carriers you have in every county. But remember that TPMO disclaimer appears in any call scripts you have, your digital, whether that's on your website, your emails, and any print formats. And of course, if anything needs approval, we can help you get that done. Again, redesign your appointment flows, or if you have call scripts within your agency, those are going to need some attention here to reflect where the TPMO disclaimer can now go there. And if you have not been using another vendor or our own call recording solution here, decide on how you're going to get that 6-year uh, retention requirement met. Keeping in mind that your phone enrollments will still require a 10-year retention. So that's something to talk with your vendors with as you're going forward there. If you have other folks in your agency, again, they're going to have our updated event and scope requirements. There may be some inertia, some pushback against when you might be collecting scopes or scheduling events, but it's up to you. And certainly we can help to educate the folks within your agency about what's changed here. If you are interested and excited about the possibility of events, we do encourage you to start booking now, book early, book often, because venues are filling up fast and lead up to AEP. As Chelsea has said, she was getting ready for the summit to pre-schedule some Medicare 101s for some of our agents that we partner with. Some of those events were already full through October. Some of them were filled through November already. So be mindful of that, right? But it doesn't mean that a Medicare 101 is a bad idea in January if that's what you can get. It just means that you might not have advantage of that audience during AEP. And do remember that anything we've talked about here today does not go into effect until October 1st. But if there's one big note to take away, right? One thing to put a bow on today's session, if you wouldn't want it done to your grandma or perhaps the Medicare eligibles you know in your life, don't do it to anyone else, right? Don't be high pressure. Take care of the people and treat them the way you'd want to be treated or want your loved ones to be treated. And if you follow that rule here, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be on the right side of these Medicare rules going forward. That's what our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. You can always get in touch with us on LinkedIn at the Action Benefits Company, email Chelsea and I at learning@actionbenefits.com, or reach anyone in our office at 248-356-8585. Chelsea, before we let the people go, what is on your mind? What good words and wisdom do you have to share with us today?
I will say, as I was calling all those places, um, especially libraries, um, they might take a while to get a hold of. I would not, and I've been talking to agents on the phone about it who didn't know because I was surprising you guys with that. So they didn't know I was calling places as you guys agents are calling me, asking me about like my opinion on setting up these events. Call like way before you want the event, like way before. I know that the libraries sometimes have like their like council of librarians who they have to like present whether or not they want a Medicare event at them. And then someone's going to bring up, well, my Aunt Sue is a Medicare. Like just call them before, like way before you want to. And then I would suggest also being open to a variety of different event spaces. Uh, Coffee shops sometimes the business wasn't particularly interested, so like they would wait like a month before they would get back to me. Being compliant there with them and like just working back and forth with them can be difficult. Just don't give up and keep at it, and don't be offended if they say no. I've had people say no and then come back later and say, actually, never mind. Yes, I changed my mind. Once they were realizing that I wasn't a slimy, the stereotype, and that I actually was out there to help them and to educate people, and I was not there to just like sell or hawk like Medicare Advantage plans. My other thought, that is not relevant to this, but like I wonder if the secret shoppers for CMS, I know that like secret shoppers for restaurants get a free meal. Do you think the secret shoppers for CMS get free Medicare plans? Who knows?
They probably can't call it free, whatever they get it.
No
Um,
cost Medicare
zero
plans.
premium plan. Um, But at any rate, ladies and gentlemen, that is those are great thoughts, and I would again echo the persistence thing, right? Just like follow-up calls with that beneficiary who goes to you, right? A few calls, figuring out where your follow-up cadence is going to be. Persistence always wins the day there, right? Some people just can't get you off the phone fast enough, but sometimes if you catch them at the right moment, that phone call, unlocks the conversation, unlocks the enrollment. I can't stress that enough. At any rate, we promised you 45 minutes. We are here right at 45 minutes. Chelsea and I are happy to stick around for any questions you might have or any clarification you might want. But you'll hear us stop the recording here in just a few moments. If you must go, we do wish you a wonderful rest of your day. We look forward to seeing you all again soon. But like I said, Chelsea and I will stick around for a bit here as well. Please enjoy your days.